That's what led us to become what we are today. So we started with disbursements. We ended up expanding to helping businesses accept payments. We expanded to help them replace the need for opening up a corporate account or a business account in a bank. And where we are today is we are able to solve businesses' needs for accepting payments, making payments, so end to end. So a lot of small business owners, they are essentially, for lack of better terms, stuck. And when I mean stuck, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in that they're not able to really grow their business, because once they reach a certain scale, they are just pulled or stretched out too thin to be able to handle growing their business, managing the operational side of things, building processes, getting customers, and also managing their financial operations, right? And so it's really, really challenging. And so one thing that NextPay aims to achieve is to make it as easy as possible. We call it easy mode for businesses to just let us handle most of the heavy lifting when it comes to the financial operations, so that they can focus on the things that really matters, which is being creative, being able to be creative with getting customers, introduce new services or products, so that by focusing on their financial operations, they don't need to worry about that and they can focus on the things that really matter. When we started NextPay, it was completely different. Well, I wouldn't say completely, but we were really focusing on a very specific thing, which was helping Filipinos with their financial wellness. And we're still doing that right now, but just in a different approach, but that's still our core. But back then, what we found was there's a common thinking or common thought where in order to help Filipinos with their financial wellness, it's all about solving financial illiteracy. But when we dove into that whole subject, which is something that we really wanted to understand, we found that it wasn't so much about people being financially illiterate. And then we found that it's not so much about them not knowing what to do, but it's really at the behavior aspect. It's not so much about what they don't know. It's how do we help people adjust their behavior so that they actually make the right decisions when it comes to financial wellness. So that's what we initially set out to solve. We built a mechanism and we helped businesses offer it to their employees. So we worked with businesses, they used our platform to pay their employees, and in the process of paying their employees, we would set aside money for their employees on their behalf. Now, that was the initial premise, and in fact, that's kind of the reason why we're called NextPay, because as an employee, you get your next pay. But then the pandemic started to happen. So that was in 2020, early 2020. And that's also around the time when we were testing out our product with a number of businesses. We were still very early stages. And I mentioned that we built a solution that helped businesses pay their employees. It turned out that during the pandemic, it just was almost impossible for businesses to pay their employees, full stop. And so our customers whom we were testing this out with ended up saying, hey, you know what, the financial wellness app you built for employees, that's great, but right now we can't even pay them. Can you help us? So that's what we ended up focusing on. We focused on helping businesses with their disbursement solution. We found that these businesses referred their friends and business contacts to us because they were also having problems paying their employees. And so we put the financial wellness app on hold and we focused on disbursements as the main product. Disbursements for payroll was just one problem of many problems when it comes to financial operations. So for example, opening up a bank account is a challenge. I think all banks except for one require an in-person visit in order to open up a bank account, right? Another problem would be the average daily balance you need to come up with in order to open up such an account. And so that automatically rules out a lot of smaller businesses. Another problem we found, or another insight we found rather, was that these problems were not really a problem that big companies had to deal with, because big banks already offer these services to big businesses. But it's the MSME market, the small business, all the way down to the entrepreneur. They're the ones who have no access to these financial services. That's what led us to become what we are today. So we started with disbursements. We ended up expanding to helping businesses accept payments. We expanded to help them replace the need for opening up a corporate account or a business account in a bank. And where we are today is we are able to solve businesses' needs for accepting payments, making payments, so end to end. Today, right now, we help businesses accept payments through payment links and invoices. We help them make payments through disbursements to employees as well as suppliers. So that's kind of like where we're coming from. They have more than 100 employees. And prior to using NextPay, so actually let me set some context on this company. This company has promodizers or sales folks all around the Philippines. And prior to using NextPay, when doing payroll, they would have to collect all the timesheets. They would have to compute everything. They would have to put it in an Excel document. They would have to find a way to kind of compute for it. And then eventually they would have to use 2 banks to pay them. So that means all of these employees would need to open up bank accounts in these banks. Because as you know, if you were to traditionally pay your employees, you need to require your employees to open up an account in the same bank as your company. And then there's also another subset of their employees where they don't even have bank accounts. So this company literally sends a person to a Palawan Express with the driver serving as a bodyguard because she's holding like a whole lot of cash in order to send their pay, right? And so that whole process took 3 days. So ever since they've started to use NextPay, and they've been a customer, and one of our early customers, and they've stuck with us ever since, that whole process has been boiled down to less than like 3 hours. So that's not just the time savings, but that's also the financial savings if you think about it, right? According to the DTI, 1 million registered MSMEs. But if you were to look at like the non-registered MSMEs, so I'm sure all of you know someone, like a family member who sells something on the side, right? A tita, a cousin, or whatever. Like that's not included in that 1 million statistic. So if we were to look at those, if we were to include those people, that number goes up to as high as something like 14 million. And that's a huge amount of people. So that's ultimately, in the future, the market that we want to address. Another thing that's also in the pipeline would be the ability to have a debit card attached to your business. So if you were to look at where the Philippines is today, credit card penetration is still not prevalent, right? But a lot of merchants are starting to adopt accepting credit card payments. And so it's starting to grow. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're going to be allowing our customers to issue cards to their employees so that these employees can make payments on behalf of the company, whether it be for gas, whether it be for online subscriptions. Our approach has been, there's always an opportunity that's not addressed.